Write what you know. Good advice. Good, solid, writerly advice, like eat your peas or don't go swimming for half an hour after eating because you'll cramp up and die. Makes sense. Good, common sense, right? Write what you know. Okay, but what does that even mean? Now, there is a general consensus, I think, that people kind of intuitively understand what it means to write what you know, but I think there's like all writing memes that are these quick little tidbits, little bromides of wisdom that you get on the internet and everywhere else. They're so much deeper and they mean something completely different than what most people interpret them to be. Most of them are just crap. Like, you got to write every day. No, you don't. That's it's not true, but that's another video. In this case, write what you know. Most people, in my opinion, think of it as, well, you got to write what you know. So you got to write about your experience. It's about your life experience. If you're going to write about being on Pluto, well, you got a problem there because you've never been in outer space. What are you going to do? Well, you're going to kind of make it up as you go along. So you're not really writing what you know. You're just kind of winging it. Well, I'm going to write a story about divorce. Well, I've never been divorced. I've never been married. Well, I'm going to have to wing that one too, because I don't really have that. I'm not really writing what I know. And this is how a lot of people interpret this, that writing what you know is about what's in here, what you have experienced physically in the world. You can't write about what you don't know because you don't know it. Just basic logic, right? But you have people out there writing about being on Pluto. You have people writing stories about what it's like at the bottom of the ocean. You have lots of people writing wonderful work about things that they've never experienced. And those stories work. So the interpretation of write what you know equals writing about your life experience as a source of the writing doesn't really work as a definition and an interpretation. That's about the doing theory of write what you know. Do more, do different things. And I'm all for a broader life experience. But that's not what write what you know means. Write what you know is about the beingness, not the doingness. It's about emotion. George R. R. Martin, the author of Ice and Fire series, Game of Thrones, has talked about this very eloquently in some short videos he's done. And he's on this same page about what this means. That write what you know means about writing the emotional life, writing from the emotion that you have. What is the foundation of your emotional experience? So it is experienced to some degree in terms of you've got to live a life to interpret the emotionality that goes along with those life experiences, and then you develop an emotional foundation in your lifetime, right? So, but it's really the focus is about the emotional life. What do you bring to the table in terms of the emotional depth? How deep is that well? How shallow is that well? That's what this really means. It's about bringing your emotional knowing to the function of your writing. Obviously, there's an issue here with youth versus maturity, right? The younger you are, the less life experience you have, and in turn, the less deep your emotional well is going to be. And your writing is going to reflect that. When you take an 18-year-old novelist and you take someone like George R. R. Martin, who's an older person, and you look at the plotting might be great. Both stories might be real great adventures, but the emotional depth going on there is completely different. And one really goes to that emotional heart. One kind of just skirts around it maybe and is doing some guesswork about the emotionality. Yeah, you do what you deal with what you got. Chris Panolini is a good example of that, of a very successful writer who wrote The Inheritance Cycle, 4 novels about dragons. New York Times bestseller. But the emotionality of those books is pretty shallow. Not bad and wrong, not something he's done wrong. No, he was 15 when he started writing that thing. And I think he published it when he was 18. So it reflects what you know. That emotional level expresses itself in the writing. The same thing with George Martin. It's there. The meat's there. The juice is there because he's got that much deeper well going emotionally. Now, there are exceptions to this codicil about youth versus maturity. S.E. Hinton, for example, who wrote the famous book Outsiders, one of the early young adult novels, 1950, I think. She was 16 when she wrote that book, and that's a seminal work. Mary Shelley. Mary Shelley was 17 when she wrote Frankenstein. Did a pretty darn good job with some deep emotional stuff, right? So there are exceptions to all of this, okay? But it is a consideration, and it reflects the real understanding and knowing about what write what you know really means. And when you approach your writing from an emotional foundation, from an emotional perspective, then you can write about whatever the hell you want to write about. It doesn't matter whether you're on Pluto or at the bottom of the Marianas Trench or some locked in a bank vault somewhere. The emotion is what's going to be there and carry everything. It's not about your physical experience. So this is all a given. The piece of this that people don't talk about is the following. You have no choice in this matter. You can only write what you know. You cannot write what you don't know. Duh, that's just kind of basic logic. But emotionally, it makes sense. If you have a certain depth of that well, that's where you are. That's where you're writing from. Everything you do, every world you build, every place you go, fictionally, is going to be sourced from your emotional foundation. You can only write what you know. You cannot go anywhere else with that emotionally. So if you're not happy with your emotional depth, okay, go live a life. Whatever age you might be, get that divorce, have people die in your life. You've got to experience loss. You've got to experience and the joy and the happiness and the depression and everything. All these things have to happen to you so that you can integrate those into who you are and then bring that out onto the page. This is all sounding very obvious, I know, but a lot of people misinterpret this and they think it's all about the doing and not the being. That's the difference. And understanding you don't have any choice in this matter. It's predetermined that you can only write what you know because that's where you are emotionally. If you don't like where you are, then go live your life. You'll get there. You'll get there. Now, chances are if you're an older writer, you're already there. You've had some deep experience. You know joy, you know pain, you know the gamut. So you're good. But if you're a younger writer, just have fun. Do it right. Speculate. Go for it. You never know what's going to happen. But understand you're working with a potential deficit here. Nothing wrong that you've done. You just got to, this is not a problem that time won't take care of. Time will take care of this problem if you keep up the writing. You will catch up to it, but it's going to take time. That's okay. You got a lot of time if you're young. Write a lot of books. You'll get your craft down solid. And then when you get that emotional basis, when that being is in place, man, take off and you'll be a success.